What's good? What's good? What's bad? What's in between? What's really going on with y'all? I know that you're enjoying yourself right now, and I want you to enjoy this video that is about to come your way because, man, I am excited to reveal it to you. I was actually tempted to reveal it many days prior, but I wanted to kind of, shift gears into health because I think it's more important than a lot of this shit that is taking place on TV, get wrapped up in this vortex of what the consensus is doing, and it might not be the right time to actually reveal these types of things without letting it die out first and, maybe let people absorb this message a little easier. Because protesting Trump, right now we are going through it, no doubt, right? The protesting of many different things that is essentially, in the context or possibly fueled by this Trump, the sound of trumpets, okay, is causing a lot of monotony, a lot of controversy, a lot of waste of energy and civil unrest, I believe. And I think that, as I've said before, the dynamic to Matrix is that the solution is outside of you. It is an external solution. And at the end of the day, these protests are, and not to say that these protests don't serve a purpose, because in this video I will show you how valuable they have been and how far it goes. But really, change comes from within inside of us, all right? Now, many people will say that these protests do cause change, and yes, they do. You are right. But we have to look at the fact that when these protests were taking place, pretty much parallel to today, is in the 1960s. And this is when a lot of people refer to times when protesting was effective and did cause this change, okay? However, I'd like to point out that during the 1960s, there was the civil rights movement, there was the anti-war movement, there was the environmental movement, and there was also the women's rights movement, okay? There might have been more, who knows, smaller movements, but those were primary themes of that era. However, these are virtually the same issues that we are protesting to this day. So don't you think that it may be in your best interest to potentially think that protesting might not be the answer? Okay, or maybe the way in which we protest needs to be modified to create a better outcome, right? Because at the end of the day, the 1960s was a major threat to the authoritative systems and the governments. And they responded in such a harsh way that much of the efforts of the 1960s was completely neutralized by the 80s. Okay, because we have, in the 70s, I believe we had Ford, we had Carter, and we had Richard Nixon. Okay, and Richard Nixon discontinued the gold standard on our dollar, which led to where we are today economically. It played a huge role. And the 80s came with Ronald Reagan and his Reaganomics and his false concept that somehow wealth from the wealthiest corporations in the world will trickle down to the rest of the people has failed. And these were the ideas that came about during that time. And crack cocaine, of course, hit its debut into American territory. So again, the protesting did not have these long-term results that people tirelessly put energy into in the 1960s, right? It really did not. And again, we have to ask ourselves, why are we still protesting the same things that we were protesting during the 60s? Now, I will say that times have changed since the 60s, no doubt, especially the civil rights movement in the Deep South, okay? Many, the conditions and things that, of protesting and things of this nature, yes, it has changed, but has it really caused the change that we were looking for? And if that's the case, then why are we still protesting, right? So moving on. After the 1960s, right, and even during that time, I mean, it's always been happening, but during the 1960s and after then, the authoritative systems, and these oligarchic forces and things of this nature really started to study and really started to analyze and really started to master how the public and the masses would operate, okay? They know how people really respond to things and engage in certain things, and that gives them an advantage over the people because they always know how to respond when the public and the people are going to react in a certain way, right? And the problem is with these protests is not only is it destructive just because it's an external solution, you're down there, you got some picket sign, and you have an opposing force that you're protesting against, and you're basically just begging them to change. And that's really what it boils down to. At this point, we are begging people to change. And it causes such a display, a eyesore to the authorities that you're protesting, that all they have to do is ring, ring, call the civil or the National Guard or the local forces, the law enforcement and things of this nature, to just neutralize this threat, to just come through and and then the media, the corporations and things of this nature, it's not like they are working in your best interest. They only display you as criminals, they display you as rebels, they display you as lazy. They don't look into why you're protesting, right? Because it's very one-sided. So is protesting really effective? And really, it makes these people look foolish. And I think that when we really think about it, it is kind of foolish, and I'll get to that shortly. The fact is that Trump is a scapegoat right now, okay? And with the dynamic of these power structures and how really wealth, okay, and the people that have wealth have a lot of power, have a lot of influence, have a lot of leeway, and are very much involved in our quality of life and societies, okay? Now, when we really think about it, the truth is that it somewhat goes like the president, we have the Congress and, all these people, right? We have the presidents. Man, I talk so much, I forget to even use this damn whiteboard. I did that in the last video. I said I wasn't going to do it. The presidents and the Congress and this, type of system, whatever. No, you actually have the presidents, right? But then you have the Congress, all right, I should say. And then you have these, what they call lobbyists, which are basically, they're just bankers, right? So the idea that we have to protest somebody at the lowest end of the totem pole is just ridiculous. And it's no wonder that we continue to, we don't see the results that we want. Because if we really wanted to protest, and I'm not going to encourage protesting, and I'll show you what I think is, the solution to things. But if you do want to protest things, then you need to start understanding how the power structures work. And really, if you're going to protest anything, you need to protest the bankers. You know, you need to protest the wealthiest entities in the world, whether they be corporations, whether they be, you know, individuals, whatever. Okay, that's how things are changed when you start to extract wealth out of people's pockets, right? Because wealth, at the end of the day, is very connected to power and control and influence. Okay, and if we're attempting to stop or think that for any minute the president is the root cause of these problems, then you're sadly mistaken. Okay, sadly mistaken. Okay, and what you need to do, though, what I feel, actually, like I said, I'm never going to tell anybody what they need to do, but what I think is most effective is you have to stop participating in these external solutions and start building, start creating. Because if you look at how the structures in society have been set up, okay, and how everybody is misled, then we can pretty much conclude that it must be a good system to actually, you know, lean in their favor, and it may be effective. So you need to start looking into how these structures are set up, how they design economies, how they design health systems, how they establish order, okay, and apply that to yourself, because that is what they have done. And this is what many people don't understand. I'll take it a step further. Who are the banks? Like, if the bankers own Congress, right, and we think that the Congress own the presidents, okay, who owns the bankers, right? Well, the first people to create banks were the churches. You might not even be able to see that, but nonetheless, the churches, the Vatican, and all these forces that really do have a key role in this reality are the ones that, you know, you might want to look into, okay? But again, if you start to look into, okay, and actually I wanted to emphasize first that if the reason you want to look into the way in which these structures are set up is because, again, the bankers are essentially owned by these churches, the religious authorities, the religious institutions, that it is very connected into actually the sources of origin, right? Our, you know, divine principles, okay, and universal truths and things of this nature. Even though, of course, it has been very much perverted and out of balance with truth, there is actually a lot of truth to it, and you could validate that because it's been working for a long time, right? But it's unsustainable. So this is why you must apply it to yourself. You have to apply it within yourself, within your household, within your communities. How can you, the problem is that many people have yet to lose confidence in these institutions, the monetary systems, the health systems, these education systems, these religious systems, right? They have yet to lose confidence in them. Because once they lose confidence, if we did actually lose confidence in them, nobody would be begging them to change, right? You would be like, fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm creating my own thing. I'm doing my own thing. And that's what I encourage you to do, or at least think about and really study what it is you're doing and why it is you're doing. Because again, the authorities have such a firm grip on how people are going to move. They set social trends, they study, they have the top most elite psychological and social experts come in to dissect how people work, right? So you want to probably look into how they work, because if they're allowing protesting, then that means, if they're not scared of protesting either, then and if it's not creating the types of change that you want, then perhaps that means they know and they expect protesting and they're ready for protesting and they don't care about protesting, right? So And I think that it's real easy for people to protest and, get out, downtown and, shout out, your cause and, spew a lot of hate, and it's anger because it's frustration, right? It's the overwhelming, just like, ugh, why isn't shit changing, right? But again, stop begging people to change. Start creating a better world for yourself, right? Like I said, many people want change, but they don't want to change. That's why we don't get the change that we want. And that's why even when you do go about it in these conventional ways that people are used to, like protesting, overthrow governments, right? And the people that overthrew them just become just as corrupt. And then it just repeats again and again and again. So obviously, this is not the way to go about it. How do you expect to have power and control over people, right? And have sustainability in society and be in the best interest of those that you are ruling if you haven't applied this to yourself, if you don't rule yourself, if you haven't a master over yourself, if you don't have sustainability within, then what are you really doing? And people need to start, like I said, it starts with your health. It starts with your quality of life, but one day, soon enough, we will lose confidence in these institutions and people will start creating better and bigger things, and they already are. Because some people, like me, have lost confidence in that shit, have lost confidence in what they have to offer for me. And I'm creating something better because we have an opportunity now to create better worlds for ourselves and our children and our future and the earth and sustainability and self-sufficiency, right? That's what they're scared of. They're scared of self-sufficiency, right? Because they're always trying to fulfill a need. But guess what? If you don't need them, then they have no power and control. Like I said, if you think that for 1 minute, you as a person can't change the world because you're just yourself, you're just little old me, remember that 1% is whatever, this is what they say, has control over the 99%. So what does that mean? That means that it doesn't take much to get shit done. It doesn't take a lot of people to change and control and have power and set up structure and authorities and different systems that actually, are successful, right? It doesn't take much. So, and we will one day, today actually, start doing this, start establishing building blocks to a better world, right? That is not so caught up in these external solutions. That's not caught up in the responses of the paradigm, not caught up in listening into what the controlled opposition is saying, right? What type of things they encourage you to do that's going to cause change. It ain't cause change. We know that shit's manipulated. We know that shit's not working. We know that shit's corrupt, but we still participated. So what? You can't expect change to happen if you're asking people that haven't changed and defend the people that don't change for shit to change. Like, come on now, man. I know that might have been a tongue twister, but essentially, you cannot find a source, a solution to the problem if you're going to ask the problem to provide it for you. Stop begging. Start doing. Start understanding how economies work. Start understanding how you can create better communities just in the community you live in and branch off from there. Stop participating in shit that you know is wrong and not aligned with the morality that is within your heart. That you know is not going to get the results that you want, that you know is not going to change unless you change. So let's keep it one and get it done.